Hello everyone. Today we'll continue the second part of the nomadic empires, the Mongols. Class 11th, part 2. In the previous chapter, we discussed about the political and social background of the Mongols, the life and the career of the Genghis Khan, uh, and the war and expansion of Mongols under Genghis Khan. In this part, we'll continue with causes for the success of Genghis Khan. His military achievements were astounding and they were largely a result of his ability to innovate and transfer different aspects of steppe combat into extremely effective military strategies. The horse riding skill of the Mongols and the Turk provided speed and mobility to the army. Their ability as rapid shooting archers from horseback were further perfected during regular hunting expeditions, which doubled chance of victory over the enemies. The steppe cavalry had always traveled light and moved quickly, but now it brought all its knowledge of the terrain. They carried out campaign in the depth of the winter, treating frozen rivers as highways to enemy cities and camps. Genghis Khan learned the importance of seas. His engineers prepared light portable equipments which was used against opponents with devastating effects. Now the Mongols after Genghis Khan. We can divide Mongol expansion after Genghis Khan's death into two instant phases. The first, which spanned the year 1236 to 42, when the major gain were in the Russian steppes, Bulgaria, Poland and Hungary. The second phase include the year 1255 to 1300 led to the conquest of all of China, Iran, Iraq and Syria. The Mongol military force met with a few reversals in the decade after the 1260s. The original impetus of campaign could not be sustained in the West. There were two factors to this. The first was the consequences of the internal politics of succession with the Mongol family, where the descendants of Jochi and Ogedei allied to control the offices of the great Khan in the first two generations. The second compulsion occurred as the Joshi and Ogedei lineage were marginalized by the Tolais lineage. With the accession of Mongiki, a descendant of Toloi, military campaigns were pursued energetically in Iran, but as Toloid interested in the conquest of China. Now the military organization under Mongols. Among the Mongols, all the able-bodied adult males of the tribe bore arms. They constituted the armed force when the occasion demanded. The unification of the different Mongol tribes and subsequent campaign against diverse people introduced new members into Genghis Khan's army. It included groups like the Turks, Chinese and Arabs who had accepted his authority willingly. Genghis Khan worked to systematically erase the old tribal identities of the different groups who joined his confederacy. His army was organized according to the old steppe system of decimal unit in division of tens, hundreds, thousands and 10,000 soldiers. He divided the old tribal grouping and distributed their members into new military units. Any individual who tried to move from his allotted groups without permission received harsh punishment. He divided the army into 4 units, and they were required to serve under his 4 sons and specially chosen captains of his army unit called Neun. The soldiers who had served Genghis Khan's loyally through grave adversity for many years were publicly honored. Some of these individuals as his blood brothers and others were given special ranking as his bondsmen, a title that marked their close relationship with their masters. So you can see the siege of by the Genghis Khan in this picture. Now the political organizations under Genghis Khan. Genghis Khan assigned the responsibility of governing the newly conquered people of his four sons. These comprised the four Uls, Ulus. The eldest son, Joshi, received the Russian steppes and it extended as far west as his horses could roam. The second son, Chagatai, was given the Transylvanian steppes and lands north of the Pamir mountain, adjacent to those of his brother. Genghis Khan had indicated that his third son, Ogedei, could succeed him as the Great Khan, and on accession, the prince established his capital at Karakoram. The youngest son, Tolui, received the ancestral land of Mongolia. Genghis Khan envisaged that his son would rule the empire collectively, and to underline this point, military contingents of the individual prince were placed in each ulus. The sense of a dominion shared by the members of the family was underlined at the assembly of chieftains. Kurultai, where all decisions relating to the family or the state for the forthcoming season campaign, distribution of plunder, pastoral lands, and succession were collectively taken. Now, the development in trade and communication in Mongolia. Genghis Khan had already fashioned a rapid courier system, YAM, that connected the distant area of his regime. Fresh mounts and dispatched riders were placed in outposts at regular spaced distances. For the maintenance of this communication system, the Mongol nomads contributed a tenth of their herds, either horses or livestock, as provision. This was called the Kupkur tax, a levy that the nomad had paid willingly for the multiple benefits that it brought. Once the campaign had settled, Europe and China were territorially linked with Mongolia. Commerce and trade along the Silk Route reaches its peak under the Mongols, but the trade route extended up to Mongolia. Communications and ease of travel was vital to retain the coherence of the Mongol regime, and travelers were given a passes for safe conduct. Traders paid the Baz tax for the same purpose, all acknowledging there by the authority of the Mongol Khan. Mongols waged their successful war against China, Persia, Russia, etc. There was a strong pressure group with the Mongol leadership that advocated the mastery of all peasantry and the conversion of their field into pasture land. But by the 1270s, Genghis Khan's grandson, Kubilai Khan, appeared as the protector of the peasants and the cities. Now, the Yasha legal code of Genghis Khan. Yasha, the code of law that Genghis Khan was supposed to have promulgated at the Assembly of Mongol Chieftains in of 1206, has elaborated on the complex way in which the memory of the great Khan was fashioned by his successors. In its earliest formulation, the term was written as Yasha, which meant law, decree, or order. Yasha concerned administrative regulations, the organization of the hunt, the army, and the postal system. Now, the conclusion. For the Mongols, Genghis Khan was the great leader of all time. He united the Mongol people. Genghis Khan freed them for interminable tribal war and Chinese exploitation. He brought them prosperity, fashioned a grand transcontinental empire, and restored trade routes and markets that attracted distant traveler and trade. He ruled a diverse body of people and faith. Although the Mongol Khans themselves belonged to a variety of different faiths, Shaman, Buddhists, Christians, and eventually Islam, they never let their personal beliefs dictate public policy. The Mongol rulers recruited administrators and armed contingents from people of all ethnic groups and religion. There was a multi-ethnic, multilingual, multi-religious regime that did not feel threatened by its pluralist constitution. Today, after a decade of a Soviet control, the country of Mongolia is recreating its identity as an independent nation. It has seized upon Genghis Khan as a great national hero who is publicly venerated and whose achievements are recounted with pride. Hope you like this presentation. So that's all for today. Thank you.